Hello, welcome to That's a Wrap, What's Next? I'm just jumping in with a pre-episode announcement, is that I am currently producing a show called The Moors. It is written by Jen Silverman and directed by the amazing Jessica Fallico. I'm acting in this production as well, alongside quite a few people that have been on this podcast before, which is very exciting. And we'll be performing at Waterloo Studios as we are co-producing this with Waterloo Studios Theatre Company. So my company is Dancing Dog Productions, which I created with my dad at the end of last year. This is our first theatre production and it would mean a lot to see you all there. We're performing from the 8th to the 16th of March and tickets are at dancingdogprod, which is prod.com. All the information's there and I really can't wait to see you. Now into the episode. Enjoy. Hello everybody, welcome to That's a Wrap, What's Next? Season 2, Episode 3. I am so excited. It's been a minute since I've been here. The whole room has changed. If you are watching, you will see that we have a different background. If you're not watching, then you're all set. You're all good. Today, I have Garth Holcombe, actor, director, acting teacher, and slut for parking. And later on, I'm going to have Kandice Joy, what a beautiful name. Kandice is an actor and does voiceover as well and is currently in Yentl at the Opera House. So she'll come on a little bit later and we'll have a great chat about that. But let's get straight into a question for you. So you've done a lot of projects, a plethora of work.
I'm old, that's what you're saying.
No, and I'm wondering... Obviously, it's probably an impossible question to answer, but what's actually been the most rewarding or your most favourite thing to work on?
All right. Well, firstly, thank you for having me on because I think you're extraordinary.
And
it's lovely to see you and work with you in this capacity. I think every project you do has a specific joy to it. And I think every time you get a role, there's joy and there's gratitude for that job. And you always start that job with, oh, this could be the best thing I've ever done in my life. This is exciting to do. This is a story that's really fascinating to me. But I certainly think there was a show a few years ago at the Ensemble Theatre called Photograph 51.
I saw that one.
Oh, you did?
That was great.
Okay, yeah. It was the first, it was unexpected for me in my life. I didn't think I'd get the role. I was in the middle of doing The Woman in Black at the Ensemble. Yeah. And I thought, no, there's no way they'll let me audition for this because I'm already in a show.
Right.
But I just read the character and I read the play and went, I know this. I would want this. And, sometimes you read those scripts and you go, I can do this. And here's a character who I just was desperate to play. So I auditioned with the director in New Zealand over Zoom. She put me through my paces, an hour on Zoom audition. Honestly, playing him was one of my career highlights. I think he let me actually implement a lot of my training that you don't always get to do.
Any specific things or?
Yeah, I think vocally and physically.
Right, okay.
It's quite rare these days to really be able to just play a well-defined character in a way.
Right. Yeah, okay.
He had such different mannerisms to me. He had such a different outlook on life to me. So he was very other. I actually prefer playing roles that are quite other, who I really am.
Yeah, that's interesting because I feel like we are it feels these days like it's very much about you and playing a role that's like you than other.
Yeah. And it's an interesting one for me to straddle as an actor as well as an acting teacher because, I think... back in my day of training, it was very much about transformational acting. You wanted the skills to be able to completely transform and be able to play everybody. And I still think actors should have that training and should want to transform. That's partly why we do what we do, which is not a bad thing. But I think just Photograph 51, playing Maurice Wilkins, was just a chance to kind of also lean into my quirks. Which is ironic because I'm kind of like, that's hypocritical because I'm saying I get to lean into my quirks as an actor. Things that I've got to watch in myself as an actor. I could just kind of lean into and let go of and enjoy. And it suited the role.
Are you seeing at the moment teaching actors, what's the biggest challenge that everyone seems to be dealing with?
Look, if I'm honest, I'm finding a lot of people, and I think it might have been a consequence of those COVID years, but I feel like I'm teaching a lot of people in their early 20s who did live through COVID and got stuck inside a little bit, and are just seeming a little bit stunted creatively or imaginatively in terms of the work. Everything seemed to be a little reductive to me. I think that people are staying within their comfort zones. They operate in their comfort zone.
Right.
And it makes them feel safe, and therefore it makes them feel like that's where their best work is. And I think it's gone hand in hand with a really nice change in the industry about, acknowledgement of certain things about the self and respect and dignity for the self, which is really necessary and needed as an actor. But I think sometimes too it can also constrain younger actors into feeling, whenever they feel challenged or whenever they feel upset by material, let's say, for example, that's a bad thing.
Right, yeah.
And
instead of, okay.
Yeah, I mean, like you said you played Lady M.
Yeah.
You should probably feel upset by for a little bit, or have an emotional reaction to what she does and what she says and what she's doing. And as an actor, it's our job to, or at least as an acting facilitator, it's my job to go, okay, you're safe. Yeah. You're actually safe. In this environment, you're safe. But now let your creativity and imagination take over and experiment and explore in that world. I think there is also something in us that, part of us all who become actors love that sense of danger and that sense of like the unknown, which is a lot of the time why we do it, and the sense of chaos. Yeah. And I don't understand why so often I'm trying to allow actors to release into the chaos and the mess.
And leaning off of that, would you say that you notice qualities or habits that for like, an exceptional actor or an actor that you actually have a lot of faith in after, like once they've graduated? Like, are you seeing, are there specific things that you notice in people?
Absolutely. And I think it's really positive. I think it's follow through. Like, doing what they say they're going to do.
Right.
I'm kind of gobsmacked how you'll kind of, you'll sit in front of a group of students and they'll nod and they'll smile. And then very few of them follow through and actually do what they said they were going to do.
Right. And the action.
Yeah, it's actually follow through. It's follow through. And it's like, then in the first year of graduating, we all know it's very difficult. It's very hard to find your rhythm. You got to work a part-time job. You standing up in your bedroom and doing a monologue for yourself. But a lot of people nod their head and say, this is what I want. Yeah, absolutely, this is what I'll do. And then very few people actually do it. And you've got to find your own way of doing it. But you watch those great clips that Larry Moss says of actors, what they should be doing every month or every week. And I'm guilty. I may not be doing absolutely everything.
So many things you can
follow through, Yeah. This is what I mean about the creativity and imagination. Come to the floor with ideas. Come to the floor with, an opinion and a perspective. Yeah. I think a lot of young actors training are starting to just wait for the director to tell them what to do. Yeah. As well, which is really incredibly boring. I went through a time of training, of course, and I really appreciate it, where the writer was God. And in a way, we would almost, we were slightly subservient to that. And I understand why we were trained that way, and I actually appreciate being trained that way, because it's given me a big respect for text and language, and it's made that bigger than me. But when I was at RADA in London, just doing a Shakespeare course, one of the tutors there said, "Oh no, think of it like a true marriage, a true marriage between the words on the page of the playwright and everything that you are."
Yeah, and it's equal.
And it blew my head apart. I was like, but I'm not equal to the playwright. I'm not, couldn't possibly. That's really egocentric to think that. And it kind of shook my world for a long time. And I realized I'd been denying parts of myself and a kind of truth of who I am.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm still coming to terms with that. I'm 44 this year, and I've been acting since I was 17, and it's still a journey.
Yeah. I read this book called The Artist's Way. I don't know if you've.
I know it. Yeah. And it's on my top of my reading
list. It's really
list.
good, and I think that it's basically what you're saying, and it's like, rather than the relationship thing, it's like, it doesn't really talk about acting in particular. It's just general creativity, but just the idea that you're the open channel that's like connecting to whatever it wants to bring to you, if that makes sense. So I guess like the writer, like you're just letting yourself be open and see what that gives.
Well, I'm starting to do that more too, like even in a rehearsal process, even though I do a lot of preparation, that sometimes I'll go, I don't know how I'm going to play this. Whereas when I was younger, I'd be a bit more like, okay, I've dot my I's and cross my T's, and I know, all the given circumstances, and I know everything. You still need to know all that stuff, but just to go, it's week 2. I don't know. Like, I'm actually not worried about how I'm going to play this. I'm just going to stay open and let it reveal itself.
Yeah.
A little.
So interesting.
And it's kind of thrilling to allow that.
Have you ever sort of been in that headspace and then you realize how close the show actually
is?
Yes.
Sometimes you do have to lock down and go, okay, right, I need to make some decisions a bit faster about stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one thing, is the time.
Sometimes I'll finish a show and I'll do a show and I go, oh, this is one way that I could have played this role. There's another way. Or even a third way that I could have done it. But this was the right way to play this role in this production. It doesn't matter whether I like it or not. This is what this version of him was. That was not necessarily what I had expected or how I set out to play the role, but it was what it was for this production. So sometimes I can finish a show and go, oh, that wasn't quite how I wanted to play him.
Right, yeah.
But you make choices for the entirety of the production. Honestly, though, at most of the time, 99% of the time, I'm done.
Yeah.
Once the show's finished, I'm done.
Makes sense.
That last show, it's not because I'm not don't have gratitude for the show itself. You've just explored it enough after 150 shows, after 5 months of touring, or whatever it is. You're done with that particular production and that particular version of the character. And you sometimes go, oh, I'd love to play him again in another 10 years and see how I might play him in another rendition of the show.
Yeah.
But generally I used to get quite depressed after shows and miss
post-show blues.
Yeah, post-show blues. Yeah. Nah, not anymore.
Really?
No.
Wow.
No, I'm quite happy to wrap it up and move on to the next project, whatever that might be.
Makes sense. I guess after a while, because it's usually when you're younger, I feel like it's the feeling of, will I ever do another show again? And these people were so lovely, and what if I never? Sure. But then if you do a lot, then you'll realize that it's consistent most of the time. That's good. Yeah, that's reassuring.
Also, theatre's a pressure cooker situation. When you're working on a set, you can rock up for one day and do, bits and pieces here and there. But theatre is family, and theatre is a really strong bond that you form, and there's a lot of relationships that happen in theatre, so it's never just what you see on the stage.
So one of the biggest things obviously in acting is being vulnerable, but being vulnerable as the actor and accepting rejection, things like that, but then also being vulnerable for a character and like having emotions free in your body. But do you ever, I think everyone has times where it's really hard to suddenly access feeling for whatever reason. So do you have specific ways that you help people access that, or you help yourself access that if you're feeling blocked?
Do you mean kind of generally, or while you're in the middle of a run, or whether you're discovering it in the rehearsal room?
I'm asking about discovering in rehearsal.
Yeah.
But it can apply to anything really, I guess.
Well, I think let's say if it's in the rehearsal room, they're the first few weeks of trusting and building trust in the room. So I think hopefully by the time you're really starting to get cooking with the show, the director has built a room of safety and trust in order for you to be able to let go and be vulnerable.
Right.
And then it's up to the actor to let fly and allow the director to pull things back and shape things. But that's the chaos I was talking about before. It is our job, I think, to come to the floor and open those channels of emotion. So I think anything that the actor can find, whether it be, those classic acting techniques of substitution, personalization, endowment, the magic if, all those things that we learn in drama school, but also really more, knowing your emotional self in a way that you can say yes to those feelings as they're happening and that nothing bad is going to happen. Big one for me is music.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
If you've got a heavy afternoon ahead of you in the rehearsal room, what are you going to do at lunchtime? Go out and, get some sun on the skin and listen to some music, get yourself open up and allow for that vulnerability to happen.
Yeah.
I think some actors feel safer to do some emotional range. For example, sorrow or, like moving into the fear and the...
Right, like some people, you prefer certain...
Yeah. That's... Whereas in other people kind of, they then may balk at anger.
Right.
You know, and often for actors, funnily enough, finding fury and being able to hold on to that in the rehearsal room is quite tricky. That'll often kick over into exhaustion and then sadness.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
So it's like kind of knowing yourself. It's about being curious, I think.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Curiosity.
Being curious and also not indulging in the emotions and not, you know, thinking that the end result has to be tears. Because very often, you know, the tears are not the most important thing in a scene, and often the director will say it's not very interesting if you cry. You know, let the audience be the ones to feel it, and let the audience be the ones to cry. But in the rehearsal room floor, letting go, opening up, being brave.
Yeah, right.
And that's where the actor has to walk up to the floor and go, I don't care what you think of me.
Yeah.
I might have snot coming down my face. I might look like shit. My hair looks terrible. If the director, and then I just, you know, I'll let the director be the one to shape and carve. But really, I suppose it's our job to get up onto the floor, marry the text with who we are, open ourselves up to be vulnerable, which is powerful, and then let the director be the one to carve and shape and twist and pull.
When you have a director, it's great, but I feel like do you do a lot of self-tapes?
Yeah.
And when you don't have someone there to help you, how do you give yourself the feedback? Also, this is a question from Georgie. She wanted me to ask you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, it's weird being a director and an acting teacher and an actor. I have to say that they do sit quite separately in my soul in the way that I work. Sometimes, you know, it's a matter of do what I say, not as I do. Because I know that, you know, I've got my own habits as an actor that I have to watch, but I can't direct myself while I act. That's what you can't do.
Yeah. I feel like it's so hard. Like, do you just watch back on a self-tape and then direct and then act again? Like, I feel like
I don't know whether this is right or wrong. I don't know. It seems to work sometimes that I when I'm doing self tapes, I'll probably do about 6 or 7 takes, and then I don't watch them back in the moment.
Okay, no, that makes sense. And then like give yourself time to refresh. And then,
I'll generally set up, learn everything, execute 7 or 8 takes, depending on what it is, and then I'll leave it for 24 hours. Wow, and then I'll go back and I'll watch those 7 or 8 tapes and just work out which are the strongest. I know other people might watch a take and then assess their performance and then tweak it and go, okay, now I'm going to go back and I'm going to not do this or not do that. I just can't do that. I find that it's like I'm trying to direct myself.
Yeah. So I guess because obviously with tapes as well, it's like not much time you like get a couple of days. And so you only have so much time to build the character and the inner life and everything. So how do you not like? I guess it's the same as going to a rehearsal and you just have offers, but in this case, your offers are just what end up being in the tape. Do you know what I mean?
Pretty much.
Like, is it like that?
Yeah. I mean, you can tell when you do something a bit cruddy in the middle of a take, and you go, you know, or you push it too far, and you're just being indulgent.
Yeah.
But leaving it for 24 hours and going back to it's really important.
Yeah.
Or even, you know, 4 hours and not choosing straight away which tapes. But I think definitely that's the difference, is that in theatre we don't self-edit. You know, we don't get the chance to watch ourselves back. Yeah. So why should I do that with a self-tape? It's kind of... But then I totally understand the perception of going, well, it's screen work. You're kind of doing this hybrid theatre performance and screen.
I feel like it's still such a new thing as well that people are still trying to navigate.
Self-taping?
Yeah.
Look, a lot of people hate it.
Yeah.
And I understand the perceptions behind that. A lot of people really love it. I was talking to an actor yesterday. She says it's the best thing ever. She gets in control of the take she sends. She gets to watch the work back, make it the best version of what she wants. Right. You know, there's nothing fun about driving for an hour and a half to be in the casting room for literally, you know, 1 minute 40 and then driving back for an hour and a half for some ad that you're never going to get. Yeah. So doing your self-tape at home is stunning. Yeah. But I still think ultimately being able to get into the room, making a relationship with the casting director, having that tactile experience is going to be more beneficial to you. Ultimately than doing, Yeah, you don't learn anything you can learn from yourself, but you're going to learn more from another human with you. Yeah. Yeah, I think it has certainly opened up a lot of people being able to audition for things more. You know, which is really great, which is really cool.
Well, let's take a sec and we'll get Kandice in. All right. Hi, everybody. We're back. We have Kandice Joy here with us now. Thank you so much for coming on. Oh, my goodness.
Thank you for having me.
It's so good to meet you.
And
over a podcast. What a strange way to...
I was just saying I've never done a podcast before, so this is very new and exciting for me.
Yay. So you're currently acting in Yentl, and it's at the Opera House, is that correct?
That's right, yes, at the Playhouse.
And how is that going? Can you tell us?
Yeah, it's
You've got a performance tonight.
Yes, so I've come on board the Sydney season as an understudy for the 2 female identifying roles, so for Horace and also for Yentl. And there were 2 seasons in Melbourne previously, one at the Art Centre and then one at the Malthouse. And they were both very successful and really resonated with the audiences in Melbourne. Doesn't matter where you come from, what your culture is, it was just quite important to a lot of people who came to see it. And they decided that a Sydney season was the next step, and we had a couple of different companies come on board to produce, and it's now at the Opera House.
How is it jumping onto a project but you're not there from the start, if that makes sense? Like you're an addition.
Yeah. I think it was tricky to know what to expect. I knew a couple of people in the cast and I had done some readings with the company in Melbourne because I was from Melbourne. But I guess coming on board I wasn't too sure. Sometimes people can be a little bit maybe protective of their work if there are understudies that are covering their role. So I guess you don't know what to expect. I wasn't sure how close-knit the cast would be, but they were so welcoming and so accepting and really just so eager to help in whatever way that they could, which I think is quite really rare, actually. Yeah. And the experience of an understudy typically is more common in musical theatre, and they don't ever really work with the person that they're covering, and the person that they're covering never really gets to see them work in rehearsal. It's quite separate.
Right.
Whereas with this, we were doing the scenes, we were rehearsing, but it would be kind of chopping and changing between the other understudy working with Amy, who plays Yentl, and then the rest of the cast, and then we'd kind of tag team, and he would jump out and I would jump in and work with the rest of the cast.
And so you said you're playing 2 roles. You're understudying 2.
Yes.
Same question for you, Garth, if you've done something like that before. But how on earth, I've always wondered this, how do you, in the same show, balance 2 tracks, like 2 roles? That's insane.
Yeah. I think the trickiest part for me, other than the fact that 30% of it is in another language, has been the blocking. And it's quite a blocking heavy show. And Garth saw it the other night, so...
Very, very, very good. Extraordinary piece of theatre.
You can attest to the fact that the blocking is quite intense. And there's scenes where all 4 characters are in the show and it's multiple scenes happening simultaneously. It has been a challenge, but a wonderful challenge, and has stretched me and put me so far outside of my comfort zone as well, which you were discussing earlier, and it's been so wonderful.
Are there certain things that you do as an individual to make sure that you foster a good relationship in the ensemble? I don't know if that's in terms of like organising a catch up with one of the actors outside of rehearsals, or, you know, things like that. Is there any specific things you like to do on projects that help you feel closer to the people you're working with? Especially in your case where you're joining in later.
Yeah. There have been quite a few train trips with some of the cast. That has been nice, just to sort of debrief with them and get to hear about what the experience was like for them prior to the Sydney season and how they developed on working the show. And you wouldn't know all of that if you didn't ask. So it's really interesting to hear just how far it's come. I have done quite a bit of stuff, previous projects by myself. There've been quite a few sort of monologues and one person shows. So I relish the opportunity to work with an ensemble. I think learning how far I can kind of push my humour, because I have a very specific sense of humour. So I start off a little bit softer, and then I
love that.
As time goes by, you learn how to use humour to to engage with everybody, but also knowing when to be very focused and when to, not wanting to waste people's time. So having that mutual respect, I think, is important.
Yeah, that's such a good thing to bring up with humor, because I think that's the best way to connect to anyone. But when you're in a professional setting, like, it's hard to know the line. And like you said, like you have such a specific humor. I feel like, everyone always holds back on, like, it takes a long time to bring out your strangeness. Yeah. Have you ever been in a show where it's very tense, but you don't have to say what the show is, but like where there's been a lack of it and has that hindered the work, do you think? Garth or
I've been pretty lucky. What about you? I'll put this over.
I feel like it's so important.
I think that I think any show will have moments that are a little complex in terms of the connection between the actors, and I think that we're all working from a place of vulnerability, and this is what we love. We love what we do so deeply that there's always going to be parts of a tour or parts of a run of a show where things can get a little bit hot or a little bit stuck. Yeah, and I've certainly experienced that in my life. I suppose you take it as as part of the process, but at the end of the day, it's about mutual respect. And also, again, that theatre is bigger than us. And we're all there to serve what this project is. So you do put personal grievances aside and get on and you do the show. The show must go on. So it's kind of really natural for that to happen.
Okay.
But I think everyone works in good faith. Everyone has good intentions. I think, the majority of actors are good human beings. They're not looking to destroy people. They're not looking to hurt people. So that's the other thing too, is that you've got to be a good human to work in this industry, because the work is hard enough and the lifestyle is hard enough. So adding extra shit to it is just not useful for anybody. Or as a wonderful acting teacher, Lynn Pierce, I remember saying to us, leave the drama for the stage. So sometimes you got to, that said, I'll also just say you've got to know when to pick your battles. And if you need to go into battle, go. Okay. Say what you need to say. Because life is short and we are all artists and we all we are entitled to our points of view. And when we get pushed to the nth degree, sometimes you do have to speak up and you do have to be brave about that. But ultimately, the show needs to go on. Ultimately, the love of what we do is bigger than that. And that's part of the process, I think.
Yeah. Truest words spoken. It makes sense. Yeah.
I don't know. I think also it gets a little easier as you get older. To be honest,
to just communicate with people?
Well, you don't have to be so liked all the time. And the thing is, you love each other. You don't have to like each other.
I feel like that's a hard concept to grasp. Yeah.
You can actually have a lot of love and respect for cast and maybe not like some of them. And that's okay. That's great. That makes a lot of sense. And good stuff can happen from that.
Yeah, I think it's very easy to be afraid of conflict these days. I think especially with like media, it's just the whole cancel culture thing. It's just easy to think that anything you say or do could like ruin your career, So yeah, I think that's really refreshing. On a completely different topic, how do you both work on your craft in between jobs?
How do you, Candice?
What are you doing? What are you?
Well, I don't think I'm going to say anything that hasn't been said before.
Okay.
Nothing is new. It's all the things like you're reading new plays, you're looking for new things to adapt or develop or produce, or looking for a class that would serve you well if you're interstate, trying new classes there, keeping physically fit, vocally fit, doing warm-ups every day if you can, dance classes, Pilates, whatever floats your boat.
Yeah.
And growing, seeing other theatre, seeing film, TV, if you can budget for it. I find it, from where I come from, it's not so much accessible all the time, unfortunately.
Where are you from?
Just sort of for people from a lower socioeconomic background, it can be quite challenging. But yeah, I wish theatre were more accessible, particularly. But when it is, it's fantastic. And talking to people who are actors or directors or filmmakers, collaborating with people you haven't worked with before, meeting new people. Yeah.
Do you both find, like, in terms of doing warm-ups and reading things, like, do you try to put yourself to any kind of, I don't want to say schedule, but like some sort of a routine so that you know you're actually going to do things? Or because there's so many different ways you can work on your craft. I find myself, especially this year, like first year, kind of just being a human in the world. Like, I think it's just so sporadic and just things, like there's never any structure, and it's just quite, like, sometimes I'm working on music or the podcast or like, which is great. Like, it keeps me feeling fresh all the time. But I also sometimes am craving, like, okay, I'm going to wake up at 9 and do my warm up. And like, I don't know. It's such a weird balance to find.
Breaking out of the structure of a drama school situation is quite hard. I don't know if you found that, but
yeah.
I missed it a lot. And I still miss it, actually. Best. Definitely. Another thing that I will add to that, actually, to do with things that I do, I like to read autobiographies. More often musicians than anything, but actors and directors. I find it really helpful just to hear about, it's quite dramatic, but the struggles that people had, and just sometimes you don't always hear about how hard it was to get to where people get.
Yeah.
And what they had to go through and endure and how hard they had to work.
What about you? Yeah, Garth.
To be honest with you, because I'm still in that system that you have left. Excuse me.
Oh, true, right.
Because I'm a trainer and educator and director in theatre schools and acting schools. I do have to be there at 8:30 in the morning, and I have to run a vocal warm up and a physical warm up, and I then plan the class for, script analysis, and then after lunch we've got a rehearsal and the scheduled.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time I'm very much in control of my own schedule and my own content. So that satiates that part of me. Like, I do live to that schedule, which is kind of great. And I suppose because I'm on the rehearsal room floor working with actors every day, then I feel like I've had a workout myself. Yeah. Sometimes, of course, you finish your day and you're like, okay, it's my turn. When do I get up on the floor? But more often than not, I finish at 6 o'clock and I'm exhausted myself, and I feel like I've had a big day in the rehearsal room. And if I was an actor that day, great. But if I was a director or an acting teacher, I still feel like it's the same thing. But to your point, I very much then do have to put my money where my mouth is and act sometimes. And so I will try to be a little bit more structured, and I will try to do a vocal warm up, and I will, as Kandice was saying, stay physically fit and healthy, particularly in the lead up to a show. It's a double-edged sword being too strict with yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you set this grand thing of a month, I'm going to read 20 plays and I'm going to learn 6 monologues and I'm going to do a 20-minute vocal warm-up every single day. I know we're supposed to do that, and maybe this is bad of me to say it, as an acting tutor, but I feel like we're also setting ourselves up for a little bit of failure.
Yeah.
And then hence we get shame, we get guilt, particularly your first year out. You feel full of shame and guilt. Oh, I'm not the one getting that Stan TV series straight away. Oh, I'm not the one who landed the top agent straight away. Oh, I haven't done anything for 3 weeks on my acting. So to be strict with yourself, but be kind. And if that afternoon you need to, you're about to do a shift at the pub till 1 a.m. in the morning, have a nana nap, go to the beach for your soul. And then go and work and know you will, that money is going to pay for your rent so you can stay in Sydney, so you can be an actor. Everything has a point. And sometimes it's as important to sit down, read the first act of Coriolanus as it is to sit down and sit in a park and just look at the sky.
Yeah.
I know that sounds esoteric, but I truly believe it.
I agree.
Give yourself some space and some room to breathe. And then work hard.
There was, I keep coming back to that show, the Joan Must Die. There was a line in that I love when theatre actually sticks with you and it actually makes an impact, because it really did. It was something towards the end, and one of the characters said to another one, she was like, I haven't done enough. And then they were like, you're never going to do enough. Like it's never going to be enough. But that was almost the biggest relief to hear, because it's like it just helps you be so much more accepting of what you are doing is good. Come to terms with.
And the other thing too, that just to piggyback off that, is a really big thing I see in actors is they just don't know when they're an actor. They go, oh, I'm training to be an actor. I want to be an actor. When will I be one? And it's funny because, you know, a lot of the time they are one. And, you know, without being, you know, to actually say, well, actually, this is it. This is the lifestyle.
Yeah.
You are doing it.
Doing it, yeah.
You don't just call yourself an actor when you're on stage at Sydney Theatre Company. You are being an actor, and being an actor is what we're doing right now, which is balancing, juggling, you know, being trying to negotiate life and work and art, seeing as much theatre as we can, staying physically fit.
Kandice, what's your relationship with that? Did you like not feel like an actor, or, you know, when did that hit for you?
This sounds a little bit wanky, but I started acting professionally when I was 6.
Wow.
I was a mildly successful child actor in Melbourne.
Wow.
You know, a couple
Theatre?
of more film and TV.
Oh, wow.
I got close to a couple of, you know, good theatre opportunities, but I was too tall as a child actor. I never really had an issue of feeling like I wasn't an actor.
That's
or
great.
wasn't yet an actor. But I always feel like I'm striving to be the kind of actor that I admire, or that I see and that inspires me, like you. And I just want to be able to keep learning and keep growing. I have so much to learn. And that's, I think, one of the best parts about being an artist in any capacity. You're never done, as you say.
Watching Yentl the other night at the Opera House, I was so fascinating to go, oh, this is such a world I don't know. I think I know the history of. But it was really inspiring. I really sat there and went, oh, I want to learn more about this. And it just reminded me how every single show you do is an opportunity to learn about a portion of the world. You know? And that's what I miss when I'm not working. Is that you go, oh, I want to, you know, this show's making me learn about, you know, Germany in 1939, and then the next show I'm working on this fantastical, you know, thing. The next show I'm shooting something where the character's dying of AIDS in the 80s, and you go, wow, it's the learning, as you say. When that stops, life can get a little depressing because you're not being stimulated by, you know, you're not moving forward with that learning. That we can participate. It's what my tutors would say to me, you know, when I went through training at NIDA. You know, participating in the world, being somebody who's interested in the world outside of yourself, particularly politically. In the last 5 days has been extraordinary in all our lives. No matter how political you are or you're not, but you know, knowing about what's happening culturally, politically, socially, and feeling like you're a participant in the world and an observer of the world, rather than just, you know, I want to be an actor and be famous. There's no life to that version of what we do. I think.
Yeah. Well, are there any last things you would like to say to the world of actors listening?
Just remembering that it's the marathoner, not the sprint. If you're in it for the long haul, then there's a kind of way to live that's kind of really thrilling. So just remembering that it's the marathoner, not the sprint. Be kind to yourself. Be a good human being, please.
And on that note, thank you both so much for tracking it down. I know you both have so many things to do later, so enjoy The Inheritance and enjoy your performance.
Thank you.
And yeah, best of luck with the show coming up. I really want to come see it now, so hopefully I can.
We'd love to see you.
Yeah. And yeah, thank you for blessing us with your amazing knowledges.
It's been very exciting.
All right, bye everybody. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.